Today, using some fabric, ribbon, needle, and thread, we are going to be hand sewing a Barbie dress. No sewing machine needed. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and you heard me right. Today we are hand sewing a Barbie dress. That means no sewing machine is needed for this video. All you need is a needle and thread and some fabric to make a cute dress that you can use over and over again for your Barbie dolls. Now for the fabric, since this is for Barbies, you don't need a ton of fabric for it, but if this is one of your first projects you're doing, I would highly recommend using a woven fabric like a quilt and cotton. You can get these from Walmart as like a fat quarter. You can also go to Joann Fabrics and get remnants. You could even use some cotton that you may have lying around your house. Really, you don't need too much, but you do want some sort of cotton material, as this will be much easier to sew, and it will provide some nice structure for a dress at the end, as you'll see. Next, you're going to want some hand needles, so this is how we are going to be sewing everything together. You can get a pack of needles from Walmart, Joann Fabrics, Amazon, really anywhere that you would find like sewing supplies. You only need one though, and you want to make sure that they are just like your general hand needle. You don't want a ballpoint needle or anything like that, since we are using this woven material. Next, it is now time to cut out our fabric. So for this dress, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fold your fabric over, and we are going to be cutting out a 10 by 5 inch rectangle. So they'll be of both pieces, but a 10 by 5 inch is the measurement. And what this is going to allow us to do is it's going to give us a front of the dress as well as a back of the dress. And we are also going to be setting it up so that we don't have to add any closures, don't have to add any fasteners, just everything is literally just with this fabric. Now, as you see, there is that fold in my fabric at the bottom, and then on the side you may have a little bit like of rough edges, so you just want to cut those off. And then for that fold at the top, you're just going to cut directly through that, and this will give you those two rectangles that you will be using for the front and the back of the dress. So you can try it on here if you'd like to see just what it's going to look like on your Barbie doll. Essentially, we're going to be taking shoulder seams as well as side seams, and then we need to make sure it fits over our Barbie's head. Now, the one thing with this fabric is you want to make sure that you know which side is the right side of your fabric and the wrong side of your fabric. The right side of your fabric is going to be a little more vibrant, the color and the pattern may be a little bit crisper, so we're going to want to put the right sides of our fabric together so that the wrong side is facing out. And the reason we do this is going to allow some of our seams to be hidden. Now, what I'm going to do is, since I have those right sides together, I'm pinning it up at one of the shoulders on my Barbie so I can then get an idea of how big of a seam I need to take on the shoulder sides to have this fit over her head. Again, there's no closures or fasteners, so we have to make sure that the only way this is going to be going on and off the Barbie is by sliding it over her head. So I pinned this on either shoulder, and then I went to see, is this big enough? Am I going to be able to slide it over her head? Realized that on mine it was a little too tight, so I made it a little bigger on one side. And now you can see that I will be able to slide over my Barbie's head if you just move some of the hair out of the way. So you can do this exact same step on your Barbie in case the head size is a little different, the hair is different, anything like that. Now we need to figure out where we need to start sewing for the side seams. I did this maybe about like an inch below her arm, maybe an inch and a half. That way it gave me room, and then we will be adding a belt around this dress to kind of cinch it up some, and so you don't have to worry about it being like completely open on the side. So as you can see here, I have now pinned both my shoulder seams, and now I have where I'm going to be pinning on either side, and now it is time to just figure out how long I want the dress. Now, the reason that I did the measurement of this 10 inches by 5 inches was so that you could have the option of having a full length gown if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that for mine. I will end up probably cutting it a little bit shorter, but if you want all that fabric, you're going to want to pin your sides of your fabric all the way down to the bottom. As you can see, I'm just going to do it maybe about 3/4 of the way. Now it's time to actually begin sewing. So you're going to take your hand needle that you have as well as your thread, and then you're going to get a piece of thread that's probably about 20 inches or so long, and you're going to thread it through your needle and then take a little knot at the top of this. So I do apologize that the camera ended up being blurry for actually knotting this, but there's lots of videos on how you can knot your thread, and I will be sure to include a link to one just so you can get a better idea. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to take a slip stitch through our fabric. So we're going to push our needle through both layers of our fabric. I'm going to bring it almost all the way through, and then right before I get to the end, you see there's this little loop. I'm going to put my needle through that and then tighten this as much as I can. And then I'm just going to now bring my needle through both layers of fabric, tighten this up. If it gets stuck on any of the pins, it's very easy to just undo that, and then continue on with the slip stitch method. And that's what I'm going to use for my shoulder seams. Now, when you get to the end of the shoulder and you have done all those little slip stitches, you are then going to do very similar to the beginning, taking that knot and just tighten it down. So you're going to put your needle through, and then right before you get to that ending where it's going to close up, you're going to put the needle through that loop, and then you're going to give it that little knot, and then you can just cut the string off. And you'll have one side complete, and then you just repeat that exact same process for the second side. Now I'm just going to sew up both my side seams doing that exact same method. So I'm going to take my needle that I know has that knot on the end, sew it so that it has the slip stitch, and then adding that little knot at the beginning just so that I can make sure it is nice and secure, and then continuing on all the way with my slip stitch. So one thing you may have noticed is that I'm using white thread, but my fabric is green. I'm doing this more so that you can see the contrast of the stitches. I would recommend, especially if you are new to sewing, that you probably use a thread that is much more similar in color to your fabric, as then you're not going to be able to see any of the seams. Also, if you have an issue with, like your seams aren't the same size, using a thread that's the same color as your fabric is going to hide that much better than if you use this contrasting color. So once you have all 4 of those seams done, you're going to turn this right side out, and we can now put it back onto our Barbie to see how it's looking and how it fits. So it is able to slide over my Barbie's head, which was, obviously a very important step. And now what it's time is we can see that we have those shoulder seams done, we have the side seams done, so it's time to really begin working on those final touches. So the way that this dress is going to work is we're going to have some sort of belt that kind of makes it tighter in the middle, and this will then allow us that we could have like an off-the-shoulder look if we wanted to. But before we get there, we do need to finish off, the hem at the bottom, as well as make sure there's no raw edges on the armholes and the neckline. So what I'm going to do is focus first on the neckline. So I'm going to fold my fabric down, and I will zoom in here for you to see it, but I folded it over about 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to put my needle through that folded piece of fabric. I'm going to take that knot very similar to how I did before, and then I'm going to put my needle back through my fabric on the back side. And then what this is going to allow me to do is I'm going to make a decorative stitch, and I'm just going to go through one side of the fabric, and then I'm just going to go back through the other side about 1/4 of an inch over, and I'm going to use back and forth all the way through my entire neckline so that I have this decorative stitch on top, but I'm also securing that neckline so that you can't see any of the raw edge. And now I'm going to repeat this exact same process for both armholes. So you can see I've already done one armhole on one side. So now for the other armhole, I'm just going to fold this over about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch even if you want. And then I'm just going to sew all of this up so that it stays in place. I'm going to use that same decorative stitching method so that you can kind of see the stitches. It gives it a fun handmade touch, and you're able to see that there's no raw edges. It kind of holds the fabric a little better and helps to prevent some fraying. So now it is time to focus on the hem of our skirt. So as you can see, I did cut mine a little shorter as I wanted it to be more T-length, but what I'm going to do for this hem, since I have that extra fabric, is I'm actually going to do a rolled hem. And what a rolled hem is you're going to fold your fabric over once, and then you're going to fold it over a second time on the inside so there's no raw edges, and I'm going to do that same decorative stitching method that I did before, where I'm going in the fabric on one side and then back out, and then continuing this process all the way around so that I have this really pretty hem on my skirt. Now though, with all that done, we can start working on the belt for our dress. If you would like to use fabric, you could cut out like a 10-inch piece of fabric and then fold that up and essentially have it go in the middle of the dress. So another way you could fold this up is you can fold it in the middle like I had done before, and then fold either of those edges in on themselves again, and you'll get a really nice little almost like rope type effect, where you will not see any raw edges, as you then could sew this up if you would like to, and you could have this go all the way around the dress if you wanted to use the same color for the belt as the dress. Another option though is to use a contrasting ribbon. I'm going to be using this almost leather-like ribbon that has these fun little studs on it. So you just put this all the way around the waist of your Barbie. You can then adjust it for how you like it to go. So I want my dress to have more of like an off-the-shoulder look to give it a little bit more style. And then here is where the belt is sitting on the back. Now the issue with having a ribbon belt or even just a separate piece is that I know as soon as it gets taken off the Barbie, it can be very easy for like that ribbon to get lost. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stitch it onto the fabric. So using that exact same method we were doing earlier, that slip stitch, I'm just attaching it to the dress and then I'm tying it on the front. And this is what the completed dress looks like. So this whole dress was made just by hand stitching. We did not use the sewing machine at all. It has a really cute little tie on the front. The belt is attached to the fabric, so we don't have to worry about it coming off. And the best part is that there was no fasteners needed. So everything is able to just slide completely over the Barbie doll's head. So this made it a very, very simple and easy project, perfect for beginners. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more Barbie clothes, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to include some more videos. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.